The Super Balm questions are brought to you by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, and Recover for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out mountainmade.life. Again, that's mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at Mountain Made. That's the @ MNTMADE. Our staff at Sound Balming uses Build before a morning workout, which helps to push our bodies to a whole new level on a daily basis. Try Build, try Boost, try Recover. Our staff is using these products to enhance our active lifestyle naturally, and we are crushing life with Mountain Made CBD, and you can too. Start today by going to mountainmade.life and ordering Build, Boost, Recover, or the multitude of other products that they have which will enhance your lifestyle. I promise you, you won't regret it.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the time of the day it is. You're at the right place at the right time with the right person. Welcome to my show. I'm your host, Dr. Lamar Darnell Shields, in the building. And yes, I am always in the building because this is the safest place on this planet right now, at least for me and my children. I am the creator of Sound Bombing, and you know, my goal with this show is to introduce you, because you are special, introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your full potential. This entire show is about helping people unlock their full potential, and I think that's why you decided to hang out with me today. So you all know two of my favorite words is imagine and create. Imagine and create, thus the word creativity. So let's stop for a second. I want to say something. Let's say you're sitting in a meeting with your team, of course, with your mask on because it's COVID. Let's just say you're sitting there and unfortunately, it's not going well. Not because of COVID, but it's just not going well. The project you've spent months on is suddenly on the rocks. Things are unclear and you need a way forward. You see, people start throwing out ideas, but they've been done before. So you need something creative, and then the room gets silent. See, I was told that creativity is the lifeblood of companies. No matter what your title, I guarantee you depend on some form of creative thinking on a daily basis. In fact, a study from Adobe found that 80% of the people feel that unlocking creativity is critical to economic growth, yet Only 25% believe they're living up to their creative potential. Why is that? Well, my next guest knows a whole lot about creativity. She's an award-winning New York-based contemporary art advisor, author, and curator, a Harvard graduate originally from Venezuela. Her first monograph out there, published by Pointed Leaf Press in 2013, was a recipient of the Best Book Awards in both the art and design categories. In 2015, she was selected by Complex Magazine as one of the 20 power players in the art world, and in 2020, she was named by ARTNEWS as one of the visionaries who gets to shape the art world. She has written, tons of publications, such as Entrepreneur. She's written for Entrepreneur, Huffington Post, LA Forbes, Artnet, Culture Magazine. She's written for everybody. She's also both in the areas of business and art, and also created and hosted the C Files with Maria Brito, a TV streaming series for PBS, and I'm a huge PBS fan. Her many projects have been featured extensively in national and international publications, including all the magazines I named. But you know what else is cool? She's here with me today, and I could not help but this song ringing in my head. Maria, 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 welcome to Sound Bombing. Let our listeners know where you're calling in from, and we like to do a wellness check. How are you doing?
Thank you for that introduction, Lamar. I mean, the way you've spoken, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fulfill the expectations of people after everything you said. I am thrilled to be here with you. I'm in New York City. I'm in Manhattan. Today is a beautiful 90-degree, humid day. Very unusual because our summer is so short. But I'm thrilled to be here. I'm very happy. I enjoy very much talking to brilliant minds like you. And also, I love to spread the knowledge that I have with the audience and give them inspiration and ideas about how they can be more creative and what is the best route with, the limited time that we have today to talk about, that they can implement new ideas to fulfill, their purpose. Because at the end of the day, it's all about purpose.
Well, I would like to say, bienvenidos a Sound Bombing, my Latin sister. And so I'm honored. I have so many questions for you. Your bio is extensive, your talks, your website, amazing, beautiful colors, so bright. But I want to hit you with this question first, Maria. What is creativity exactly? How do you define creativity?
Creativity is humans' ability to come up with ideas of value that have relevance and novelty. And I want to highlight that creativity is the only human resource that is endless. We have a limited amount of energy. We have a limited amount of, certain capacities, physical capacities, right? Like we are bound by our bodies, but our creativity, our imagination, and the execution of those ideas is something that never ends. And Maya Angelou used to say, the more I work on my creativity, the more creativity I have, because that's the truth. It's an active kind of verb, if you will. To be a creative person requires work. And that's one of the myths that people get entangled with, is that if you sit down and just wait for inspiration to hit, that's going to come and help you be creative. There is truth in the fact that a lot of people do need an incubation period, and that's very well known even by science. However, you cannot just stay in the incubation period all the time waiting for things to hit you, because then it's not going to happen. So that's creativity for you.
Well, I know we're on the right path because you quoted one of my favorite creators, Dr. Maya Angelou, and I know she's actually a part of your blog post. I think the Groove issue.
Yes, the latest one.
The latest one. So you coming right out you're out the gates already representing your great country. So we are off to the races. Quoting Dr. Maya Angelou says a lot about who you are and how creative you are. So for some reason, creativity has become one of those nebulous qualities that most people feel you either born with it or without it. What are your thoughts?
No, listen, every human being is born with enormous creative capacity, and that has also been proven by science. There is an extensive study that was conducted by Dr. George Landman, and he died already, and his wife also was a PhD. They worked together, and they were hired by NASA back in the 70s or early 80s to select who were the brightest engineers to be put in the hardest tasks. And they needed to also figure out who were the most creative, because you don't leave the whole kind of NASA thing to whomever is not able to come up with those ideas, right? And this study was so fantastic that they decided to conduct on their own a study of children and follow them through their lives, right? So they're all 4 years old, 98% of them, all of them were super creative, 98% of them, right? I mean, they measured their creativity with the tools that they had available at the time. 98% of them were creative. Then the same children were measured when they were 8. Then it was 75%. Then the same children were measured when they were 15. Then it was 50%. The same children were measured again when they were 23. And it was like maybe 20%. The same were measured again when they were in their 30s. It was only 2%, which is astounding. So creativity is something that we are born with, and as we get in the world of like formal education, news, social media, and whatever drowns us constantly, we unlearn it. So I always tell my students, because I have a creativity class, that creativity can be learned. But the truth is, I just say that for purposes of them understanding that they have to unlearn all the patterns that they have ingrained in their brains since childhood. And so the problem with formal education, with all the all the good things about having a formal education, which I'm not saying is not necessary, formal education is needed. But the problem with formal education is that it doesn't teach people how to think, but what to think, right? Things are given to you by teachers. And then you also have caregivers with their own opinions, and you don't choose your family. You don't choose, I mean, I'm sure your parents do the best. Like, I'm a mother, right? And like, you always want to do the best for your children. However, we now know that creativity has been stifled by the educational system, even, in countries as advanced as ours.
So I love that you talked about, being born with this, and it's a part of who you are, and the research to back. I guess that Harvard degree is paying off, not only just being an artist, but that degree sort of supports it even more. Let's go a little deeper. Now we want to go into Venezuela. I want to talk about Latin art. Some of my favorite artists. You have Salvador Dali, Pablo Picasso. You have Francisco Goya. Of course, you can hear. I taught a little Spanish class. Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Yes.
What role has Latin artists or your Latin culture done to support your role as a creative, and the opposite, to suppress it as well?
I grew up when I grew up in Venezuela, the hit of the moment was all the kinetics with like the great Carlos Cruz Diaz, who designed all the Marlins Stadium in Miami, the floors, and all those incredible sculptures that move with you. Jesus Soto was another one of those guys, and they are all dead by now. But I grew up with this kind of that was not authentic of Latin America, because that was something that these people have been incorporating in their practices, because it was coming from France and from Paris, which was the center of the art world back in, the 1900s. And so I grew up with this idea of like all this amazing moving sculptures and things that, is up art. They are illusionistic, right? And the European with the legacy, which you've talked about, like the Spaniards, Picasso and Dali and whatnot, were also highly influential, right? And what Latin American art is today is very different, because two things. We are whether we like it or not, we're living in a globalized world. And so we are all taking ideas from others and giving our own spin. And that's also part of being creative, because there's absolutely nothing new under the sun, right? We take what exists, we give it our own spin, and we either make it better, different, to serve a different function, etc. Right? So in the realm of contemporary art today in Latin America, a lot of things are happening down there. A lot of things are happening in the Latin communities in the United States, particularly in the areas of performance, photography. There is, a great variety of artists, and also very daring millennials who are, exploring all these issues of race, intercultural exchanges, gender, which is such a heated topic too, because what we've learned in the past, 5 years, with a lot of, us learning, because I include myself, I'm always learning, is that gender is such a humongous spectrum that it's not just one thing or the other. And we have art to teach us that in a way that is non-contentious. But I want to also say that some of the most important artists working today are Black artists, and that they have a lot of kinship with Latin, and there is a lot of Afro-Latinos as well, as you know. But Black artists are part of a very important conversation. And when I started this business 13 years ago, I started collecting myself and also putting them in the houses and in the collections of my clients. And it wasn't the hot thing to do. I discovered also many Black artists that now it would be impossible for me to acquire them now, but back then it was possible. And I think that the conversation that they bring to the table is very, very important for all of us, because they also see things through a different lens, right? And artists are also very entrepreneurial. They have no limits in what they can put in their art. And so that gives them a whole other level of advantage, right? I mean, they are really not constrained. And so we do have to keep an eye on all the newer also art, the Black artists, and keep supporting them, because for many years they were not supported, right? I mean, Basquiat is one of the exceptions. But
Basquiat wasn't accepted until I love the role of hip hop. The hip hop plays. Went to Haiti, studied Basquiat, but he wasn't really accepted until Blondie, the singer Blondie, who was out in the 80s,
yes,
included him in a video. She started borrowing his artwork. And then once she sort of, and this is sort of where we have this comparison, quite often it takes Europeans or non-people of color to put their stamp of approval on our work. And he's an example of that with Blondie. No disrespect to Blondie, but I'm seeing more and more of that, where when other cultures, in particular the dominant cultures, is giving their stamp of approval, many people didn't know who Basquiat was. I mean, he hung out at the hip hop communities. Then he hung out with this sort of buppy crowd of whites who started hearing about hip hop and coming to New York, where you are, and a guy named African Bambaataa who invited them in, and Fab Five Freddy, who was on MTV. Yes. But all of those people played a role in it. Do you ever feel that we aren't supporting each other enough, or that we're depending too much on other cultures to give us their stamp of approval when it comes to Black and Latino art? So you're talking to a person with Black and Latino roots, so who understands this very, very well. Do you feel that we're depending too much upon those individuals to approve our work in order for us to give us the credibility?
Yes, I think that's unfortunately the case. And, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not sure, because in a way, I want to believe in general that there is people's goodness, right? And that they also want to help, and that they also want to believe and extend an opportunity. And I am going to tell you something that is very crucial, and for whomever is listening to this. You said very well, I was born in Venezuela. I grew up there, and I moved to the States to go to Harvard Law School, because Well, first of all, I sold out in my dreams because I shouldn't have gone to law school because I wanted to do other things. And my mother was very adamant that you have to do something where you can depend on, right? Like a dependable career. And so, but I convinced myself, and when you're young, you convince yourself very easily of certain things, right? So, and I, I did the things, the right things. I got my degree, I passed the bar, I moved to New York, I worked in big law firms. And when I decided to open a business that had nothing to do with being an attorney and quit a career that was very secure, where I had every sort of perk, it was horrible, but I was safe, right? I mean, I had a very safe and robust paycheck. Twice a month, I had an insurance, I had a car because every day you had to stay until 9 p.m. So you had a car service, whatever. So when I decided to open this business, had it not been for the United States and the amount of receptivity that I received, I would be nowhere. And I'm telling you that that kind of love, acceptance, and receptivity would have not happened in Venezuela. It would not have happened in Europe. It would not have happened anywhere. There is no place on earth that has much more support, love, and understanding to give people a chance when you are coming with fresh ideas, working hard, and being legit and honest than this country. And we do have to accept that the country is what it is, and people have problems, and we have hit a rock bottom with racial tensions that unfortunately we all have to live with, and trying to do something, each one of us, to make a change, right? And we are trying every day to be better, accepting and understanding, and, putting ourselves in other people's shoes with empathy. But I also want to make sure that, and to acknowledge that I would have never gotten the success that I got anywhere in the world had it not been because I was here. And I'm an immigrant. I have an accent. It took me forever to become an American citizen because I had to go through every, visa and thing and green card and whatnot. And, yes, at time people say, where are you from? And why do you speak weird? And it's okay. See, I mean, I still, everywhere I call, people ask me, what's the act? It's like, my God, I just, it's crazy. I say hello and they already are like, where are you from? And so it's, but it's okay. It's who I am.
Yeah, listening to you, I'm thinking of the comedian Gina Yashara. I don't know if you know her. She actually
I don't.
She's Nigerian, but she grew up in the UK. So she has this Nigerian slash British accent. And she, just like most immigrants who come from cultures where education, it means a lot, and you just talked about that. So in Nigeria, like almost most countries in Africa, when you're Nigerian, typically it's like you become a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. And so she has this running joke that I didn't become a doctor, I didn't become an engineer, I didn't become a lawyer, I became a comedian. So that means I'm the black sheep of the family. And so she shares this story about how, but in her mind, she was this creator. She was creative, she was funny, she was writing, but because her culture, the big C, which is the Nigerian culture, and then the small C, which is in her house, didn't really accept it. And she had to learn to be okay with that, but then she had to walk in her own path. And I'm hearing you say the same thing because I see that quite a bit, where parents who are not artists, who are not creators, and when they have children, my niece is one of them, she's in art school in Milwaukee. And I remember her mom, when we were looking at schools, we were looking at SCAD in Georgia, we were looking at MICA in Maryland, we were looking at all these other schools. And, art school is expensive. And so
Yes.
her mom, who comes from a world, works in HR, I'm looking for a quote unquote safe job, whatever that means, didn't understand that because she's not an artist. And so she eventually gave her the opportunity. She goes to school and she's having a great time there. But I mean, what message do you have for those parents that are out there who may be stifling the growth of their children, who are these budding artists, being a designer, a painter, a writer, a singer, or graffiti artist, or a tech person? Because there's so many ways that you can be an artist. What message do you have for those parents that are out there who are listening to this show and they're having these conversations with their children right now? Because you are a prime example of someone who went against the grain. I'm sure your mother, they eventually gave you the blessing, but again, you said deep down inside, there's this other story that I need to get out. So what message do you have for those parents? And or maybe for those adults who are struggling to get out of their 9 to 5 because they're not walking in their gifts. You know, Parker Palmer, the great teacher Parker Palmer, he talks about when we have our calling. He said, when your soul and your role meet up like a V, your soul and this is your role, that becomes your convocation. That becomes your vocation. I'm sorry. That when the soul and role come together, your vocation is what you're doing, your art, your dancing, where you feel so great that time moves just, you know what I'm talking about.
It's the flow.
There's this flow. So what message do you have for those individuals?
I think it's important to recognize something you just said. When somebody actually wants to become an artist as a profession, it's not just a profession, it's a vocation, it's a calling. The most successful, listen, I've worked with more than 450 contemporary artists, ranging from Damien Hirst to like people who graduated yesterday, okay? And what all of those true real artists tell me is that they can't stop making art, right? That's one of the things. It's like there's no choice. I have to do it. I have to do things with I want to paint every day. I want to sit down in the computer and design things every day. So this is something that you, as parents, they have to recognize early on if their children are one of those, right? Because if they are not one of those, then I'm not sure as they get older if they are going to, build that up. Because it's usually, I think that talent, the word and the concept are overrated because anybody can get better and better and better and better at something, right? I mean, by practicing. And in this day and age, I know also artists who run large studios and they have 20 assistants, right? And I mean, it's a little factory. And those people aren't necessarily, those artists aren't really that talented. It's their ideas and their creativity and who they surround themselves with and how they run their practices like companies. And that's actually what it is. And to make it more palatable for those, individuals who are considering that their children are going to starve or whatever, there has never been a more important time for artists than now. Not only are they rich, I tell you, like children like 23, 24 years old are making $100,000 a month. I am telling you, not only are artists making a whole lot of money, which this is unprecedented. This is insane with the confluence of like Instagram and TikTok and all the social media networks. NFTs now, like it's been absolutely revolutionary. So if the person knows what to do, if the young person wants to become an artist and has somewhat an idea, that person probably will do well. There are many other skills that are required. You have to be out there, you have to be a marketer. But Lamar, the truth is that no profession guarantees success unless you're out there, unless you're pushing yourself. So if your child wants to be a dentist and they never want to promote, probably they are going to starve as well because nobody's going to come to see the dentist that does not have a social media presence, that does not advertise, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's, and I also believe, and this is super important, that in the next few years, we're going to see artists taking a more active role. Most artists are already activists, honestly, because you're putting your message out there and what you believe. And that is a form of activism, whether you're doing an active political claim or a racial claim or a gender claim or not, because you want to sell what you have inside to others, right? So that's an act of that's activism, right?
I was going to ask you, what is the role of the new artist today? And you already hit it when you talked about artists are activists in their work and for the clothes that they're wearing, for the hashtags they're creating, from the art pieces. And you've already answered that question about the role of the artist is being an active, being visible out there in the present, so then people can, either purchase the art or follow them or just continue being a part of the movement that they're actually creating? Because artists have always played, correct, right? Artists have always played a role in movements. When you think of music, you think about Dr. King and Mahalia Jackson. You think about Basquiat and the hip hop world. You think about Black Lives Matter and social justice issues. And so art has always sat side by side. And when you were talking, I was thinking about the great Langston Hughes. There's several restaurants in the Virginia, DC, and Baltimore area now called Busboys and Poets. And it's named after Langston Hughes. And when I discovered Langston Hughes lived in Washington, D.C. And when he was a busboy, Maria, I love this story, he would write poetry just on the napkin, like when he was in there waiting. Now, could you imagine, Maria, going to a restaurant or finding a napkin with the original handwriting of Langston Hughes? Because I was told in the late 80s and early 90s that people were finding Basquiat doors, like where he tagged a door, and the door was worth 10, just your back. You don't even own the building, but I'm going to take this door. It's not my door, but I'm going to take this door and I'm going to turn it into something. And so you are too seeing a shift in the role of artists, correct? Of how they're being portrayed.
You know what? It's not new because we don't have enough, comprehension of like how artists were revolutionaries. And this is an issue, and I'm going to also make a note. What we have learned in our side of the world, in Western culture, from art history comes from, 600 years ago and started in the Renaissance. And this is what, yes, cave paintings and all those things, we also learn about that. But let's say in a much more formal way, because when the ancient Greeks left all those fantastic sculptures and mosaics and things like that, there was nobody writing about it, and they'd never really signed the work, so you couldn't really learn from one artist specifically. But in the Renaissance, they started signing everything because they realized it was important and it was expensive, and there were patrons, the Medicis, they were paying for the whole thing. So here's the deal. The political artists started in the Renaissance because they were also seeing things, right? And like, remember, there was the Black Death that was way worse than COVID-19. There were things happening, and they were capturing those information, the information, and also rebelling sometimes against the system. But according to art history, the first political artist, it's a guy from France called Jacques-Louis David, and he painted the death of Marat. Just a guy who has a turban in his hand is outside of the tub. He was taking a bath and he was killed. And this is a true story because it was all on the heels of the French Revolution. And this guy who was killed while he was taking a bath was a journalist. And so, there were factions within the revolutionaries that hated each other. And so one of the women hated him and went and killed him. And the painter painted super quick, and it's a masterpiece. And what he did is that he portrayed the guy who was killed as the hero and not the woman. And so, I think that it's very interesting because this happened 400 years ago, 300 years ago and whatnot. And so artists have always had this desire to challenge the status quo, to open up different conversations. And they are really very important for that. And I think they deserve much more recognition than what they already have. I don't know, for some reason, the arts have been always surrounded by this mystery, or like it's snob, or I don't understand it, or it's boring. And it's actually the most fascinating thing, not only to learn about culture and history, but also to ground ourselves in different thoughts. How many times I've seen an art, and this is what I do for a living. I see 600 artworks a week. How many times I've seen an artwork and say, I learned something new today. I'm so glad that this crossed my path because I am understanding something that I did not understand before.
So what would you say is the future of art? Where is it going?
I think the future of art is going to be a combination of both physical objects and digital objects with the NFTs. That we have seen this craze that started back at the beginning of the year when Beeple sold his video for $69 million at Christie's. And so this idea of not, in other words, not every artist is going to make $69 million, but the idea that artists can create digital, things and put them on the Ethereum and sell them to collectors who are young, millennial, Gen Z, and whatnot is a very interesting thing because they don't probably have the money to buy the real thing, but then there's a way to start. So I think the future of for artists is very, very promising. Because there will be a hybrid of digital things, and obviously everybody wants to still have art in their homes. I mean, this is something also that it never goes out of fashion. I mean, like the excavations in Turkey that have taken all these ruins from year 2 years before Christ. The walls of the things are covered in frescoes that the artist painted. So that the actual physical object and what art makes for people, the owner, the artist, etc., that's never going to go away. But now there is a new avenue, there is a new way to reach people and make money, and that gives a lot of control to the artist. And what I was saying before too is that I believe in the next few years, I'm not sure how long, but I think very shortly, artists are going to be integrated in taking corporate decisions and also as part of the government, because that's usually what happens. You need to have constituencies that take decisions where everything is sort of like taken into account, right? And we have a very imperfect government in the United States, but believe me, it's much better than what I've seen around the world. I know we complain and it's terrible, but you know what? It is a form of democracy that still works. There are lots of checks and balances. When one side wins, then the other, they lose the house, or so there is a little bit of that. And I think that it's important for us to kind of figure out, as people who vote and we have rights, how we can make governments incorporate thinkers from very different, from what's not the standard, right? Like, I mean, who do you hire in the government? Is you hired the same people who have been in the government forever, right? Or who do you have if you are in a huge corporation? You hire people with the same kind of background working with big corporations. So I think it's time. And this is actually absolutely critical for creativity. And if people are not artists, they should consider also, how do I start surrounding myself sometimes with people who think different? Because we also have had the unfortunate pattern lately to surround ourselves in silos with people who think just like we think, and people who tell us they are like the echoes, right? Like they repeat back what we say so that you feel safe, and it's all each validating each other, and nobody can have a healthy debate, because if you have a healthy debate, then you're canceled. So this is it's very dangerous for innovation, for creativity, and for moving the country and the society and whatever you are, whatever you do, even if it's a small community. It's very difficult to move forward when all you see is yourself.
Well, what can entrepreneurs and business people learn from artists? You talked about politics and the role of government. Now let's talk to those entrepreneurs who might be struggling with their creativity, want to do something different. Two of my favorite magazines is Inc. magazine and Fast Company, and it's some of the most creative people who are taking on some of the most challenging projects in the world. So talk to my entrepreneurs and business people. What can they learn from artists, and what are some things they can do to make their business more creative to then attract more clients?
One thing that most people don't do is to follow the authenticity of their ideas. And because we do have so many societal constraints and impositions, and entrepreneurs are by nature people who are willing to take a risk, and they also are people who can be risk averse, because once you've taken a step forward, you want to preserve what you've gotten or what you've built. And the thing is, in the times that we live, back in the day, let's say before the digital revolution, we are already on the forefront of the fourth revolution, right? Like that, we are already past the digital revolution. So back in the day, right? I mean, I'm sure you remember there were all these mom and pop stores and things like that, and like all those, not all, but many of those business, sadly, were hurt and in some cases disappear because of, they never adopted anything online. They couldn't compete, with Amazon. I mean, nobody can compete with Amazon, the truth is, but there are ways to pivot businesses. And I think that artists are very good at pivoting things too. They don't have to stick with something. What most artists that are successful do is allowing themselves to grow and learn different things. They don't have to be just, if they are painters, they can try to do sculptures. If they are, or they want to go and work with like prints, or they could take a project and, design the murals in a hotel and things like that, right? I mean, there's no, it's very open and they don't shut themselves out of projects just because they think I'm not capable, right? I mean, and I think that that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, once they've reached a certain level of success or safety, are not necessarily putting themselves or their best ideas out there, also because of fear. What if I do this? What if it's not very well received? I think that we are constantly suffering from all this fear of what is the world going to think about what we're doing well. I mean, for the most part, you have to actually try, right? Like you have to actually try. And that doesn't mean that you're going to do something that is so outrageous. No, I think that you have to take certain steps where you're measuring, that you already have a foundation, and then you are going to experiment. And the experimentation is everything. If you don't experiment and you don't give yourself a chance to try something else, you're never going to know if that works for you or not. How many people I know who have taken experiments and they have shifted entirely their operations because they, wanted to take a chance and try something new and realized that was a better path. And this is what we do continuously as entrepreneurs, is like this. It's never a straight path. It's always taking the turn and the curves and seeing where we are, because we don't live in isolation. Entrepreneurship, owning a business, is not a thing that can live in a vacuum. We need customers, we need interactions, we need partners, we need, vendors, we need to partner. If you're working alone, you hire freelancers to help you out and things like that. But it's a constant give and take with the society and the space that we are in. If we are not paying attention, then we become irrelevant. And that's where creativity falters, because, you can't serve your clients if you're not attuned to what they want and what they need and what's happening out in the world. And artists are very good at that. And that's why they're also such great activists, because they are constantly paying attention to what's happening in society. And one thing I always tell my students is pay close attention to the margins, because the margins is when the original movements form, like hip hop, for example, right? I mean, who would have thought? I mean, I know that many people knew that it was going to be something, but when this started in the Bronx in the 1970s, and it was somebody emceeing and, like speaking to the tunes of background music that was Caribbean. I mean, hip hop is mainstream, the most mainstream it could be, right? I mean, it became the anthem and the face of the United States. I don't know if much more than rock and roll, because I think rock and roll fans are huge, and it's still such a, emblematic thing.
Hip hop is probably the biggest export out of this country anywhere else, the form of music, because it is everywhere.
It is
everywhere, yeah.
But it started in the margins. Mm-hmm. And I always, as I'm telling you, like the same thing with the NFTs, whomever started buying them from this guy Beeple, right, before he actually hit that, it's already really loaded, right, in crypto or whatever, but you can exchange your crypto. So it's important. Also, I pay attention to what my kids are doing, right? What are they doing? What are they playing? Because, yeah, you might say, well, they're 13 and 11, what do they know? No, they know. And and it starts there, and it actually then spreads out, and artists also are very attuned to what's happening in the margins.
I know a lot of artists that are amazing artists, but Maria, they're struggling to get their art out there, and they have their social media platform, but that's still not enough. What advice do you have for that struggling artist who's doing extremely well? I'll give you an example. He's not struggling now, but I do want to hear your thoughts. My good friend Khababi. Khababi is out of St. Louis. Great artist, an amazing artist. So Khababi had been doing artwork. I mean, he has a certain image of his artwork, and you know Khababi's piece because of designs and the lines and the colors that he used. So he did 2 of Prince's albums. I always have it's funny, I got all these Prince stories. And so let me just tell you, people don't realize how serious of an artist, an art collector Prince was. So Prince's ex-wife, who's a friend of mine, her name is Manuela. You can Google Manuela. Now she's married to another artist named Eric Benet. So I want to know the story, like how did my friend Khababi, because he never shared the story with me, and I don't even know if he knows, how did Khababi get to design 2 of Prince's albums? One is called Something Children. I can't think of the name of it, but I know the album is Something Children. And so Manuela says that she was speaking somewhere. She was somewhere speaking, and she was, I think, talking to some kids, and they were taking a picture. You know how you take a photo and the kids are around you. And wherever she was, behind her was a Khababi piece. So Prince looks at the photo. And so she's probably said, hey, look at the photo of the kids. And he was like, okay, but who did that? And he went past her and all the kids and saw Khababi's piece and commissioned him to do 2 album covers. Now, everybody doesn't have that story, but I know tons of artists, because I'm an artist. I spend time around these artists who are painters and graffiti artists and, do a variety of different things. But many of them, Maria, are struggling to get their work out there. You based on your background and your resume, you've worked everywhere, you've seen everything, you said it. What advice do you have for those artists, up and coming artists, but also not just up and coming artists? You have Amy Sherrod here in Baltimore. I'm from, she's famous for the Michelle Obama piece and those things, but whose name still is not as big as it could be. So
Amy?
What advice do you? Yeah,
that name is very big and very
in certain areas,
it's very expensive.
Yeah. No,
Believe me,
I'm not downplaying her work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still certain communities you go to, like, who are you? I'm like, what? Who? You don't know who I'm talking about? So what advice do you have for those individuals who are not at the Amy level? And I'm not just talking about people of color, but I'm just saying artists who have been out there for some time and those up and coming artists.
Well, look, there are 2 things. One is the notoriety piece, okay? Like, not everybody's going to be famous, and that's okay. And, we have to acknowledge that, because also we've already gone through all the different iterations of fame. There is, the social media fame, there is the reality TV fame. And we know, like Andy Warhol say, in the future, everybody's going to have their 15 minutes of fame. And I think everybody has gotten them now, okay? And we're good with that. Now, the selling, the being out there, in my experience, a lot of artists are not doing enough. They are not doing enough promotions. And I put something on Instagram. Okay, did you put the hashtags? Are you doing it every day? Now, Instagram is all about video. Did you do a video? What are you doing? Are you engaging with people, right? I mean, it could be something that takes and eats up 2 and 3 hours of your day, and you have to do it unless you are, well off and you can hire an assistant who can do that for you. So are you really upgrading all your social media strategies? Because putting one picture out there, people are not coming to you. And remember, artists are real entrepreneurs, and the most successful ones are working their asses off, not only in their studios painting or sculpting or designing or whatever. They are hustlers. They are out there, right? They are talking to everybody. And one thing that I spoke about before is that this whole world of NFTs, what it has done is opened the world for artists to make money consistently. Those platforms, you can put your NFT, you just have to have a wallet where, well, you have to learn the process, but creating an NFT is pretty much having a digital file. You can make a painting, take a picture of the painting, and then put it on the Ethereum blockchain. It's a process that's called minting. And then it creates an NFT that has a one-of-a-kind, a bunch of numbers and people buy it, and you put it on these platforms where, people go, and you have, there is Nifty Gateway, and there is OpenSeas, and Super Rare, and things like that, and you kind of make money out of that. It's crypto, but then you have to be on the same bandwagon where I don't really love this idea of having a parallel currency or whatever, but we have to understand that this is where we are right now. So a lot of artists are missing out on this opportunity to do NFTs because they don't understand what it is. But there's not a lot of science to learn how to. If you Google, how do I mint my own NFT, you're going to find instructions step by step. But you have to have a computer, and you have to be willing to do that, right? And at least a phone to take a picture of a painting, if that's the way you want to do it. A lot of the people who are doing NFTs create the art online, borrowing elements like Beeple did. He was just borrowing imagery from the internet and creating his own with what he borrowed, right? And it doesn't take rocket science to do. It's like the thing that I told you before. It doesn't even take talent, right? You don't have to have a particular talent to do that. And I think that if you want to stay relevant, you have to be able to connect with those very young audiences. And they are not necessarily young. I know that Mark Cuban collects NFTs. He opened a website called lazy.com for people to showcase their NFTs. So I think that, artists also should approach people who own galleries in their own communities, right? I mean, if we're talking about Baltimore, we're talking about St. Louis, every town and every city in this country almost has a gallery. It doesn't have to be the best gallery in the world. There is a place to start, right? Because if you start talking to those people and they give you an opportunity to hang on the walls, well, then that's another thing. That's another stream of income. That's another way of doing things. But for the most part, I think that artists who are either up and coming, or those like your friend who did Prince's album covers and who has a talent, should also acknowledge that the times have changed and that this requires hustle, and it's a real hustle, and we have to do it if we want to succeed, and it's work, and it's gotta get done. And so it's all about how do you position yourself, how do you do things. I think it's a wonderful story, the story of Prince, and Prince had exquisite taste. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure that the art is phenomenal, and this artist is fantastic. And I don't know him, but I'm gonna look him up.
Yeah, Khababi. I'm in the airport in St. Louis, and I was working in St. Louis quite a bit last year and the year before last, before COVID. And I walk in, and they have a Khababi display. His wife owns a restaurant that was actually just on Netflix. The restaurant is called Sweet Art. So if you Google Sweet Art, you'll see Khababi. Khababi is CBAI, I believe. But an amazing artist. I could talk to you about artwork forever. You've done some amazing things. I want my listeners to get in contact with you and read all the things you've been doing. What is your platform that you want people to connect you in? And then what impact, Maria, do you want to leave on the world? So talk about your platform, how they can get in contact with you, and then what impact do you want to leave on the world?
All right. Thank you, Lamar. People can come to mariabrito.com, and that's a website that hosts there is a link to my creativity class online. If people want to take it, is evergreen. I used to do a launch thing, but it was so successful and everybody's so happy. I said, I cut the price and I made it evergreen for everybody. Then there is a link also in my website to people who want to sign up for my newsletter once a week, free, and it will always be free. And I pour out my soul in that newsletter and give people ideas. It's storytelling from artists, from writers, from musicians, and from entrepreneurs and business people who have changed the world. So I'm consistently dissecting their processes, their lives, or taking anecdotes and showing people that it's just big things happen a little bit at a time, right? Like the next day, you're not going to be Picasso, right? Or the next day, you're not going to become Steve Jobs. But your idols, it's very important that you think that you can actually be like your idols, because it's pretty possible. It requires a lot of effort. And this is something also I want to highlight. Nothing good comes from not working, right? Like but people tell me, oh, but look, this girl, she's like 19 and she has 20 million followers on Instagram and she does nothing. those things don't last. Because, you know, there is a longevity thing in life. I mean, like if we are all following the trend of longevity in this country, right? I mean, take aside COVID and whatever, but like we're going to live until like 90, right? And with all the new things and the medical advances in science and whatnot. So if you think that somebody can sustain a lifestyle the rest of their lives just by posting 3 pictures, right, of whatever it is, that's a wrong statement, because I love technology and I think it's very important. And I think also people who, you know, do their creations on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, I think that's valid and they are artists in their own right. But there's got to be more to that, because that person is going to get old. The audience is going to get bored, you know, and so we have to continuously re-engage and refresh our brain. So, you know, and in my same website, you're going to find links to all my social media platforms. And, you know, that's how you find me. And regarding my legacy, is that why you want?
Yeah, before you answer that last question, I want to come, because we're gonna bring that back in. I want that's going to be the last question to ask you. But I want to go back to talk to me about your creativity class. You know, what is that process like to register, and then what should someone expect from that class who feels that they may not be a creator, that they may just be a regular person who just want to learn something about creativity? Who are the type of people that come to that class, and what is the outcome, or what should people expect once they finish your course?
The people who come and register are from all walks of life. I've had attorneys, I've had doctors, I've had artists, real estate people, entrepreneurs and business owners, architects, psychologists, even, believe it or not. So the process is very simple, because as I said before, I used to have a different type of system. I was launching it and close it down. And so I would host weekly calls with my students for 4 weeks, and they would go through the material in 4 weeks, which was a lot. And then, you know, the way it is right now is that I just evergreen it. So I don't launch it anymore. People can come at any time, register, click, and then they're going to find a portal where they have divided in modules, all the structures that I think people need to be creative. So it starts with, you know, the habits, the skill sets, the techniques, and, you know, it ends with a module where people actually learn how to see the future, which is my favorite thing, because if you're creative, you're 2 steps ahead, right? And I give them some bonuses and interviews with artists who are, you know, very, very well off. And I also have a bonus for people to think about their finances differently, because people, when they talk about being creative, it's almost like they are so precious about it that they don't want to think about money. And my answer to that is, if you're really good at what you do, you should be compensated for that. Okay. And you should charge according to what it is, the market rate for certain things. And so people should stop having those hang-ups with money and creativity and this and that, because the most creative people in the world are very wealthy. And, you know, I think also there is this kind of idea somebody's going to take care of you and this and that. That's not true. You know, money comes from us. We are the source. And if you believe in God, God is the source, but you are the one who actually have to work for your money. And so it's that paradigm of like, you know, when I have money, I'll be so happy and this and that. No, it's like, be happy now, be productive now, and then you will be a much better vessel and receptive of what the world and the universe has to give you than if you're sitting down waiting for the money to just like fall down on you, right? I mean, that's the wrong type of thing. And so, you know, the creativity classes, my students are very happy because they learn how to see things from a different perspective, and they sharpen a lot of their senses. So this is good for anybody really who depend on their ideas or who want to, you know, I have people who come. One of my participants was a man who was living in Detroit, and he was working for a museum. And he wasn't happy at all. And one of the things he set out to do when he took my class was to figure out how to move to New York and get hired by a gallery. And he did. And he is now making twice as much money. He's living in Manhattan, a very nice life. And this is very unlikely and uncommon that in the middle of the pandemic, you have someone to move from Midwest to New York City, making twice as much money and having, exactly the life. And it might sound to people that a museum and a gallery are the same thing, but they are not. So, I've had an attorney who, I told her that she really needed to differentiate herself. And one of the things, because she was really worried about her path inside of a big law firm, which I was there, right? And but I hated it. I didn't want to become a partner, and she does want to become a partner. And one of the things, she learned in the course is to differentiate herself. She had to bring clients, and now she brings clients, and now the partners are taking her very seriously. And so, I think that creativity is the root of entrepreneurship, but it's also the root of survival in a business world or in the world we're living in. And so I am super thrilled of the results that people get with this course, and it just requires the time to do it,
What role does spirituality play in your creative process? I know we have different ways of approaching a project, but what role does spirituality play in your creative process and in your decision making?
It's a very important. I think that, we are spiritual beings living an earthly experience, right? It's not the other way around. And so I think that we sometimes forget that. And we are so consumed by the realities and the dramas and the problems of this planet that we forget that we are high above that, right? Like as spiritual beings, we came to this world to fulfill a mission. And this is something also that I myself got caught up with many years ago. Like, well, is my mission to, cure cancer, let's say, right? Or what is it? And so I want people to know that fulfilling a mission doesn't have to be that big, right? I mean, like, we fulfill a mission by serving others. We serve others with our presence, with our energy. We serve, like, for example, I serve my readers by being excellent, right? And I serve my children by setting an example. And that's a mission. And that's how we fulfill purpose every day. Purpose is also something that it trips people up. What's my purpose? Should I be just like, the same thing, curing cancer, or should I be Jay-Z? Like, I'm not like him. You know what I mean? Like, there's only one Jay-Z, just like there's one Maria, there's one Lamar. We have to acknowledge that each one of us has a very particular path. And what drives the path is our heart. And that's absolutely spiritual, right? And we have to really make sure that we understand as human beings, even if you don't believe in anything, that there is something that animates your body and that it's way bigger. Like, we can't at will just stop our hearts, right? I mean, even if you try, you can jump out of the window, sure, but that's not what I mean, right? Or that we breathe in and out, every day without us doing anything. It's so humbling to think that we've given this opportunity to inhabit this world and to meet people and to really do whatever we want, because humans are very capable. If you think about it, look all the things we've done, like airplanes and cars, and we can do anything. We have conquered the seas. As long as you do things with respect and ethics, we can really do anything. And so this capacity of humans doesn't come from our own world. It comes from something superior, and that's important, very important to acknowledge.
Well, speaking of doing anything on this planet, what impact do you want to leave on the world?
I want to help people open up their brains and hearts to both the idea of art and the things that they can learn, even if it's just by looking at it. And I also feel it's important for me to convey the knowledge that I have gathered in my life that comes a lot from my experiences, also transitioning from one career to the other, and also what I have learned from artists to be able to to teach people how to live a more fulfilling life with their creativity and their ideas, no matter what they do. And so these are kind of two things that overlap and that intertwine. But I think that the mission is always to serve the others with the best that I can, right? Like to serve the others with a level of excellence that I feel proud of myself every day.
I love that. I love that. Listen, I want you to go and check out her site, her blog, her corporate site, her online course. Subscribe, read about what she's doing. Amazing issues, The Grove, great issues. I got a chance to read the one, of course, because we started out with the quote from Dr. Maya Angelou. So I appreciate you hanging out with me today, Maria, but you cannot leave right now. The second part of the show is called the Super Bomb Questions. The difference from this part is that I'll ask you some different questions, but I want you to respond as quickly as possible. This part of the show is brought to us by Mountain Made. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, so here we go. Maria, what's your favorite word?
Creativity.
What's your favorite quote or maybe a spiritual or Bible verse?
You cannot, no, actually, this one. Whether you believe you can or you cannot, you're always right. That was a Henry Ford quote.
What's your superpower?
My creativity.
What's your spirit animal?
That's very interesting. I think my spirit animal is a tiger.
What moves you to tears of joy?
My children.
What moves you to tears of sorrow?
The bay that the world is in right now.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
I wish I had a couple more hours during the day to do everything that I had to do, honestly, with work, but also with fun. I need a couple of hours more. That's just two.
What is the book or books you've given most as a gift and why?
I think Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. I've read it many times. I've given it away too because it's fantastic.
What guides your heart?
I think God. I believe in God, and I want to be close to Him. That's my interpretation. So it guides me. Yeah.
Before COVID, what's the two items that you always had to have in your purse or in your bag whenever you hit the road?
My phone, my iPhone, and a bottle of water.
All right. If you were in the Mrs. America talent competition, not Mrs. Venezuela, what would your talent be?
I'm a singer.
All right, Maria, thank you for hanging out with me. It has been a pleasure talking with you, listening to you, learning so much, not only just about the art world, but about music, about culture, all things culturally driven. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. I know you have a super busy schedule, so I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. So
I just want to tell you one more thing that I have not shared with many people, but I think you should know. I have a book coming up with HarperCollins in March of 2022, and it's called How Creativity Rules the World. And I pour also my heart and soul into this project. I wrote it throughout 2020, and it is a much deeper and interesting manual for life than any of the creativity books out there in the world. And I'm extremely proud of the book. I'm very excited about having it out there in the world in 2022. And I'm excited to share that with you because I have not really told anybody yet. But
well, congratulations. You heard the exclusive here
yes.
on Sound Bombing. Well, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate everything that you've said and shared with my community.
Thank you, Lamar. You're wonderful, really. I can't wait to meet you.
Thank you. And I also want to thank my amazing engineer, Alexander Blanc, my super duper producer, Nicole Klempaka, Supremacy for our theme music. But all of you, I want to thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, stop being stingy, and share me with all of your friends. We're on every platform. Definitely check me out at drdrlds.com. It's been a pleasure, but listen, go out and do something for someone other than yourself. Today, you've been listening to Sound Bombing.
The Super Bomb questions are brought to you by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, and Recover for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out mountainmade.life. Again, that's mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at Mountain Made. That's the @ MNTMADE. Our staff at Sound Balming uses Build before a morning workout, which helps to push our bodies to a whole new level on a daily basis. Try Build, try Boost, try Recover. Our staff is using these products to enhance our active lifestyle naturally, and we are crushing life with Mountain Made CBD, and you can too. Start today by going to mountainmade.life and ordering Build, Boost, Recover, or the multitude of other products that they have which will enhance your lifestyle. I promise you, you won't regret it.